Formula One teams are always trying to cleverly interpret regulations and find ways around areas that are heavily restricted. This is why, in this never-ending competition for performance, there is some back and forth between the racers and the FIA every season. This can sometimes be the cause of a big upstir if the FIA decides to act on some of the modifications, or if they need to make modifications to ensure the safety of the drivers, as we've seen last year. And even before the first races started, the 2023 season has already provided two obvious examples of teams aggressively pursuing concepts that some of their competitors may have assumed were prohibited. Mercedes and Ferrari both unveiled some fascinating details about their front wings on their debut models. They were ideas that were deemed to have been overlooked in the FIA's attempt to reduce outwash. Designers, on the other hand, never unlearn what they already know, which is why they seek methods to stretch the language of the laws to their maximum and pounce on the tiniest of regulatory adjustments. Thus, Mercedes designed an ingenious end plate. To set the stage, Mercedes debuted a new front wing at the Miami Grand Prix last season, with an end plate and flap shape that defied what the sport had envisioned when it drafted the regulations. The outboard part of the wing was used as a flow conditioning device in this design, as it had done in earlier standards. The plan was for the airflow to be forced laterally over the tyre face and out around the wheel assembly, therefore influencing the wake formed by the tyre and the wheel assembly. To do this, Mercedes swung back the wing components to free up the bottom area of the end plate, allowing the airflow to circulate in a way that would not be possible if the regulations were followed exactly. The FIA altered the regulations for 2023 in an attempt to prevent this type of design from being realised. A thorough examination of the W14 from the unveiling revealed that Mercedes had once again found a way to employ the design idea, although with alterations made to conform with the requirements. These modifications involve removing the flaps from the end plate while twisting their edges in a similar fashion. This has been done to aid the formation of vortices, which will eventually merge to form a much bigger aerodynamic flow structure. The flaps are then attached to the end plate with considerably smaller brackets, which aid to make the design legal, as well as another winglet that sits above them and provides aerodynamic support. And, well, Ferrari decided to steal Mercedes' concept. A design that Mercedes had wanted to debut at the Mexico Grand Prix in 2022, before abandoning it due to legal concerns, has reappeared on the Ferrari SF23 during its introduction. The row of 5 slot gap separator brackets on the front wing components were plainly inserted to aid in the creation of outwash across the face of the tyre. Nonetheless, there had been debate among the teams and the regulatory body prior to the Mexico GP about whether such aero impact should be permitted for something that should have mostly been structural. Mercedes chose to avoid difficulties at the time by replacing the brackets with its standard horseshoe-style substitute. While it felt it was acceptable, it claimed that the true performance increase of the wing resided elsewhere, therefore there was no need in wasting time on a legal battle. Given issues about the rules surrounding this topic raised by the Mercedes wing scandal, the laws were reframed for 2023 to assist avoid additional controversy. Several changes were made to Article 3.9.8, which covers the front wing's auxiliary components, including the slot gap separator brackets. The most significant change, however, was a deletion. The following components will be permitted in addition to the front wing assembly, for primarily mechanical, structural, or measurement reasons. The sentence "for primarily mechanical, structural, or measurement reasons" has been deleted for the 2023 rulebook. This was changed in the slot gap separator section with the following: up to 8 slot gap separator brackets per side of the car, which provide a structural connection between consecutive front wing profiles. Each bracket must. You'll notice that there's no mention of a principal purpose in the new section, since it's impossible for the FIA to debate how much impact a component has, given that every single item on the car has some amount of influence over air traveling around it. This implies that the slot gap brackets used by Mercedes and visible on the Ferrari are now legal. Although Mercedes didn't have any on the W14 at launch, it's likely that we'll see them again soon, and others may possibly have plans to mount their own in the coming weeks. But these weren't Mercedes and Ferrari's only adjustments. For Mercedes, the most noticeable modifications are on the side pods and the engine cover. The team was obliged to remain with last year's plan, since starting over would mean missing 12 months of learning and progress. But a second glance at Mercedes' black Formula One car indicates that further alterations have been made to the car, although in minor areas. The front of the W14 is distinguished by a distinctive form of the front wing and the attachment of the nose flaps. The contour flattened out at the bottom of the nose to send more air to the lower half of the car is noteworthy. The front suspension has been modified, particularly at the lower triangle level. Several details are also visible further back. The engine packaging has only been modified in part, with the side pods now having a continuous profile, whereas the W13's profile was interrupted at the point where the side pods curve inwards. The new approach is to keep the airflow to the back of the car by using the Coanda effect against the bodywork. Meanwhile, the lower half of the hood has a channel that directs airflow around the back of the bodywork onto the low-lying beams of the rear wings, visible under the Filicetti emblem on the car, for increased aerodynamic efficiency. Mercedes is definitely addressing both the airflows that move over the car and the airflows that pass underneath the car, in pursuit of that ideal aerodynamic balance that was sorely lacking in 2022. And Ferrari had their fair share of upgrades as well, as the fascinating design modifications in transition from the F175 to the SF23 are suppressed by smart solutions that may be seen by closely inspecting the car. It was especially intriguing to see a vertical intake in the bottom half of the chassis, immediately in front of the side pods. Ferrari technicians refer to this intake as the bypass duct, which emerges at the top of the side pods. The goal is to energize the airflow, particularly the hot stream emerging from the top gills, so that it may be directed towards the back of the car. The distinctive scoop side pods have had their fair share of upgrades as well. The sculpted profile of the top of the side pods has maintained a major element of this car, as it did on the predecessor when seen from the top. We can observe how the bypass duct's outflow is separated into two sections to feed the airflow flowing beneath differentially. There have been some front aerodynamic improvements for Ferrari as well. With the flaps tapering down sharply towards the end plate, the wing's downwash capacity has been enhanced. It's fascinating to observe the 5 vortex generators, or diverters, that have been placed to boost the outwash of airflow, as said earlier in the video. It's also clear that the steering rod is now at the same level as the lower front suspension wishbone. In comparison to the F175, this contributes to an aerodynamically cleaner region. The steering rod of the F175 was situated between the upper and lower wishbones. What are your thoughts on the upgrades? Will Ferrari or Mercedes be able to battle it out with Red Bull in 2023? We can't wait to see the action unfold in the coming weeks. We'll be on the outlook for all the cars during the winter testing this week to see any major changes, and we'll update you along the way. So, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to make sure you're never missing out on the latest news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.